Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Today, I have a special guest to talk to us about an experience that he had back in 2004, a very strange experience that might have been extraterrestrial or non-human intelligence related. I think it is based on the story that has been relayed. This is Tom. He's from Cornwall in the United Kingdom, and he's going to talk to us today about his experience back in 2004. But before we talk to Tom, I'm gonna read an email that Tom had recently sent to me, where he describes his story, and then we'll take it from there. But anyhow, here it is. I'm gonna pull it up on the screen. Okay, this is what he wrote to me. He says, "Hi Jim, I've got an experience I'd happily talk about on the show. Back in 2004, I lived in a small hamlet called Goonlaze. I was 18 years old, lived with my parents, and was studying film and media at college. Goonlaze is in a really rural location in Cornwall, which is situated in the southwest of the United Kingdom. I didn't drive, so in order to get to and from college, I'd have to catch a bus. The nearest bus stop was about 1.5 miles away in a village called Stithians, so I'd walk there and back most days. It would take me around 20 minutes to do the walk. The bus ride was approximately 30 minutes and took me straight to the college. Sometime during April or May in 2004, I finished college and got the bus back to Stithians. I specifically remember finishing early that day and my film tutor asking if I wanted to take one of the school's video cameras home to experiment with. I declined his offer and still regret that to this day." Oh, yeah. The buses ran roughly every hour or so at quarter past the hour. Usually I caught the 4:15 bus and would get home around 5 p.m. However, as we finished early, I was able to get the 3:15 bus. I got off at Stithians and started the short walk home. Just as I was getting close to Goonlaze, I glanced over a hedge and saw a silver object hovering in the sky above a field. It was the shape of a tic-tac and looked to be the size of a Volkswagen camper van. The distance from me to this object was between 100 and 150 meters, and I would estimate its elevation to have been about 2 to 3 stories. There's a farm nearby, and I used the outbuildings to judge this. There was a low hum and vibration in the air, and I was completely transfixed on this object. As I stood there staring at it, I was vaguely aware of time passing, but felt that I couldn't look away or leave the area because this was a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I felt calm and at ease, fascinated and more than happy to be standing at the side of a remote road staring at this object. It was genuine bliss and amazement. I did feel a little frustrated that I didn't take the camera my tutor had offered me, but mostly just savored the moment. After 5 to 10 minutes, I slowly walked the rest of the way home, casting glances back until the hedgerow became too high to see over. I didn't want to leave. I could have stayed there for hours. At one point, I almost walked back to see it again, but something instinctually told me not to. I listened to that instinct and headed home. When I got in, my mom was surprised that I was back later than usual. It was nearly 5:30 p.m. I'd caught an earlier bus that day. I should have been home around 4 p.m. Even accounting for the time spent staring at the object, there's no way I stood there for more than 10 minutes or so. I don't have any explanation for why I got home so late, especially after leaving college far earlier than usual. I tried to tell my mom what I'd seen, but as soon as I opened my mouth, I couldn't get the words out. It felt like waking up from a dream and the memory instantly fading. You know, you had a dream, but you can't describe it or remember it in any way. And then I forgot about it. I don't know why or how, but this incredibly profound experience left my mind after getting home and talking to my mom. Now, I had been diagnosed as having a rare form of diabetes 4 or 5 months earlier. This is why I can recall the times of this day with such clarity. I was on a very intensive diet and medication routine, and although technically diabetic, my blood sugars were running perfectly, and I had never had such clarity of mind. My diet and treatment regime from 2004 is firmly embedded onto my head and always will be because I went so hardcore with it, and it paid off. By the end of 2004, my doctors stopped the medication as my diabetes was essentially in remission. I mentioned that I forgot about this incident not long after getting home, and it remained that way until November 2017. Oddly enough, my diabetes flared up in September of 2017, and I was really sick for 2 months. Once I got a handle on the treatment and started getting better, this whole event came back to me with absolute clarity. It was astounding, and I felt a bit concerned that something this extraordinary had just slipped my mind for over 13 years. I wonder whether being in a similar routine in 2017 to the one I had in 2004 helped bring this memory back to me. It's a very odd coincidence. Funnily enough, in July of this year, the diabetes flared up again, and I've now got some new meds to get it under control. So I wonder if I'm going to have another sighting or unlocked memory this time. I'll definitely be keeping my bloody phone on me at all times, so I won't miss the chance to film anything. Oh yes, Tom, that's I want to welcome Tom on the show. Thanks a lot for joining the show today, Tom. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having us, Jim.
Yeah, I guess you do regret not having that video camera with you that day. I mean, that could have been maybe you would not have forgotten then. Perhaps you wouldn't. The video evidence would have been there. Would have reminded you.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I can still remember being stood at this low point, looking over the hedge. And after initially, I mean, when I first saw it, my first reaction was to actually. It was like my brain was trying to justify to me what I was seeing as something completely normal, because I was looking out across the field towards the farm, and my first thought was, oh, I've not noticed that before. That must be like a big grain feeder or a big like silo tank. And then I was looking for the legs or the support struts. Obviously, there was nothing there. And again, it appeared to be hanging or just hovering in the air. And after, then within a few minutes, I was thinking, oh, why didn't I get that camera?
Yeah. That's so. I mean, at the time, though, I mean, you forgot about it anyway for all those years. I mean, 13 years went by, and then it came back to you. But it must have been an amazing experience. Like, it must have been like having some kind of a flashback to like, oh my God, how did I forget this?
Yeah, and it didn't come back like compartmentalized or in little like in dribs and drabs. It came back as like a full memory, like just straight off the bat. And it was weird because I was having a phone call with a friend, and I don't know what we were talking about, but it happened during that phone call, and I stopped her, and I was like, hang on, I just need to tell you something. I've just had a weird memory come back from years ago. And that was it. It was back in my head, and it has been ever since, with as much clarity as I've provided you with.
And okay, we have a map up here on the screen. And this is the area right here where this happened. This is where you were
Yep.
at that moment. And what is this area like where this occurred? Is there a lot of people? I mean, does it look like farm area?
No, it's in the ass end of nowhere. It's there weren't a huge amount of buses that would run through there every day. So like as a rule, it was very quiet. And also, so the main, I mean, there's one city in the whole of Cornwall which is essentially a county, or a state, if you will, and so there would be lots of traffic going to the city. But these are like back road areas. So unless you lived here, you would be driving through, especially, somewhere between 3 and 5 o'clock in the middle of the week. So it's a very, very quiet area. You can, you're walking those roads there, you can hear a car coming from miles away because it's just so quiet.
Yeah. So let's like, okay, you're walking, you're seeing this thing, right? And okay, describe it. You say it looks like a tic-tac, just like has been described by in some, that's been something that's David Fravor had talked about.
Yes. Well, actually, when I first recalled this a few years ago, the best way that I could describe it at the time was I was like, it kind of looked like a big silver egg that had been flipped onto its side.
Yeah.
And then, like the more I thought about it, I was like, nah, that's not right. And then it was, I don't think I was influenced by all of the media surrounding the Tic-Tac, but when, when all of that came out, and I was like, wow, that is so similar to what I saw. And that's what I started to referring to it as a Tic-Tac shape, as opposed to like a large silver egg that had been tipped onto its side.
Well, I mean, I guess the funny part is that Tic-Tac story that happened in 2004. That's the same year.
It did. And actually, again, like that's something that only really, I was telling somebody else about this recently, and in retelling them, I was like, actually, yeah, I'm pretty sure that the was it the Nimitz? Was that where it was shot from? Or was that
I think it was. Yeah, was it the Nimitz? Yeah, I believe it was.
Yeah, it was 2004. So
2004. Yeah, and they saw it from in their jet. There was two jets with 4 pilots, 2 in each, and they saw it. Fravor was one of them, and so and they described this amazing object that was doing things that our aircraft cannot do, and it was also tracked, I believe, and it was flying at incredible rates of speed, and then it. And you're describing something similarly shaped, and that it happened in the same year, except it was in Cornwall.
I mean, yeah, and obviously I didn't see it move in any way, shape, or form. But I described it as hovering, but I think hanging is almost a better description. When you see like a Christmas decoration on a tree,
yeah,
and it's you can just, the way that it's weighted, you can just tell that it's being suspended by the string. This, it was completely still. And, I think back and I can see it in my head right now. And it definitely gave the impression of just hanging in the air. It was so bizarre.
And you said there was a sound, like a feeling. Describe there was a sensation that you felt in the air and also a sound. Could you describe that?
It was just, it was like almost like a very low vibration is the best way to describe it. And not so much like, maybe a little bit like, like before a thunderstorm.
Yeah.
You can feel like a bit warm and just like there's a heaviness in the air and almost like a strange undercurrent of static. That was the, it was a very low, almost like a very, very low vibration. Very deep.
And there was a humming too, or was that part of this? Like
that's part of it. Yeah, it was difficult to distinguish like feeling from sound, like in the moment. But there was just it almost felt like the air pressure had just dropped very, very low.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Did this thing ever move, or was just hang the whole time? It just hang there. It was just hanging there, like
it stayed in the same position the whole time. No movement whatsoever.
And you don't, and when it ended, like what was the like what made you finally decide? Like you said, you just felt like you needed to leave, and it was still there when you left. You just walked away with this thing just still hanging there.
Yeah. To me, it felt like I'd been stood there 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And it was mesmerizing. I felt completely calm. I didn't feel scared or threatened in any way, shape, or form. I just felt completely at ease, and I was just transfixed. And like I said, I did not want to look away because I was like, this is probably something, if I walk away right now, I'm never going to see again. So I'm just going to stay here for a bit longer and really take this in. And then, there was a moment where I was like, stood in the middle of nowhere at the side of the road. I can't stay here. As amazing as this is, I can't stay here forever. Again, still kicking myself for not taking the camera from college. And then I just started to walk down the road. So looking at the screen now, I would have started heading left because I lived about 5 minutes from this point. So I started heading down that road, and as I was looking over my shoulder, like as I was walking, so I still kept it in sight. And I got to where like the hedge just got a bit too high to see over, and I stopped on the side of the road, and I was like, do I go back for one more look? And I was like, no, if I do that once, I'm going to just keep on repeating it. So I just forced myself to go and walk home. And you can't really see from the map, but when you get to where it says Tresevant Hill, a bit further left, it starts to dip down, and then you walk past that wooded area, and then the hill starts to go up again. And it was pretty much, as I got to the bottom of that hill, that's when I started thinking to myself, how do I even describe this? Because I wanted to get home and tell my mum.
Yeah.
I was like, how do I even describe this to someone? And then that quickly, that thought then just went to almost struggling to remember it. And it just felt like when you wake up and you've had a dream and you go to explain it to someone and it's gone. You're like, hey, I had a dream. And they're like, what was it about? And you're like, oh, actually, I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
But within that 5-minute span, I got in, as I said, mom was like, I think actually first off, she's like, why are you, what are you back at this time for? And I think that threw me for a second. And I was like, well, it shouldn't be 5:30. It should be closer to sort of like 4 o'clock. And then at that point, my sighting was completely out of my head. It just completely left.
That's weird. And so it completely left, and you just totally forgot about it until 2017.
Yeah, it's absolutely wild.
And it all came back to you, and it was like you're under similar circumstances. You were on the diabetic medication in 2004. That incident happens. You forget about it. Like you remembered it while it was happening. You obviously you wanted to tell your mom. You couldn't wait to tell her, and then somehow it just slipped your mind, and it slipped. It stayed slipped all the way for all those years. That is amazing. It's almost like, it's also amazing too. It's like I want to go back to your experience when you were there. You said you felt calm and cool, and that's odd that, happens to a lot of people when they, I'm not sure if that's manufactured by somebody, because, that's not the way you should. I mean, really, why should anybody be feeling calm, cool, and collected and at peace in the world with something? I didn't, when I saw that UFO, I didn't feel at peace. I wanted to get out of there. But, maybe if I would have stuck around a little bit longer, maybe I would have felt at peace. But I don't know if that's natural. I mean, is it?
I don't know. So the only thing I can compare that feeling to, and I mean, like in terms of like being transfixed on something and completely in the moment, nothing compares to that sighting. But a close second is when you go to see a band that you really love, and you're there in the crowd, and you're just completely honed in and focused on the band playing on stage, and it's just such an amazing energy and a really good feeling. And you're literally just like savoring that moment. You're not thinking about anything previous or anything that'll be happening afterwards. You're just focusing. You're honed in on that moment. It was just like that, but tenfold.
I mean, even though you talk about all these, on the show, I talk about all these different cases, famous cases. Like just yesterday, again, I talk about the Pascagoula case a lot. I just think that was a good one. But those guys, even those guys, like when they got picked up, like all of a sudden something calmed them down. Like how does that happen? Like you're not going to be calm, and you hear this a lot. Yeah, all of a sudden I felt like, oh, these are my friends, and everything's all hunky dory. And I'm wondering, and I guess so. You walk away from this, and you have this missing time. You don't realize it until 13 years later. So what do you think happened? Was there any? Did there seem like there was any glitch in the middle there somewhere that
there really didn't. Like as far as memory serves. I got off the bus, I walked home, I got to that, I walked up to the point where I had the sighting. I stood there for a little bit looking at it, and then I went home. But obviously I got home, and it was, that was wildly out of routine for me to get home at sort of like 5:30, because the way that I was like controlling the diabetes was obviously, yes, through the medication, through a lot of exercise, and like essentially very low to no carbohydrate meals that I would try to eat like every sort of 3 hours if I could. So me and my mum got in the routine of me like having breakfast, taking lunch to college, having a snack, and then to make sure that like the blood sugars were in check, we figured out what time I'd be home each day. And I would get home and dinner would just be, she'd have just made dinner. So, that keeps the blood sugar levels nice and stable. So for me to come home at a time that was different to the usual, it was something that stuck out. And she's like, hang on, what's going on here,
Yeah. And actually you did get out earlier that day too. I mean, so.
Yes. Yeah. And that funnily enough, I can remember the sighting much better than the earlier parts of the day, But I think for some reason, the class had been cut short that day. And as a result, that's why the tutor was trying to palm off the cameras onto people. Because look, we didn't have time to probably go over this, but you can take this home with you and just experiment with it like overnight and stuff to make up for us having to cut the class short. And so, yeah, I ended up getting a bus like an hour or so earlier than I would have done anyway.
And you would have definitely, if you, and you, one of the first thoughts going through your head had to be, I wish I would have brought that camera with me, because look at this thing.
Yeah, it's weird when recalling something like this, the things that really stick in your head. And I can remember I was stood there and I slung my rucksack off my back and I just had it on, like I was holding it down by my side. And I was looking at this object, and then I looked down at the bag, and I was just kicking myself. Like, why did I not take that camera?
Wow, that's something. It's terrible. But I know, here's the thing though. I don't even know. I mean, you were pretty close to this thing. I mean, that wasn't, how far exactly, was, I mean, it was pretty much right there. You're looking at it right there. Right.
Yeah. Well, if you see the red marker on the map.
Yeah.
And then if you go, so like I would have been stood just off of that like big field, and there's two small fields either side of it, or two like narrower fields either side of it.
Down here.
Yep. I estimate the object would have been towards the bottom of that big field.
Down here?
Yeah, roughly about there. It wasn't like directly over the farmhouse or the outbuildings, but it was close enough that I could sort of gauge the height at which it was just there in the air. And I think that's probably maybe a couple 100 meters at the max.
Yeah. And was there anybody here?
Not well. I mean, not that I was aware of. You can't really. I mean, I could see the tops of the farm buildings, but I couldn't see anyone there.
It's funny, you forgot about this at the time. You might have even at the time, like you might have went back and say, hey, did anybody down here? Like you would have, if you would have had time to think it through, you might have been able to go down there and say, hey, did anybody see that thing floating around out there yesterday? But that you never were able to, because you totally forgot about it.
Yeah. Funny enough, I was actually maybe 3 or 4 years after this, I started a band with some guys, and we found a rehearsal space in another farm that was like just below this farm here. And again, even, so I was going to band practice, once a week or so for a few months, and literally going right past that area, still just did not enter my head in any way, shape or form whatsoever.
Wow. So I guess the other thing is this: what do you think happened? Do you have no other memories of what happened during any of that missing time? You just have missing time. You can't explain it. Do you think that there was anything that might have happened? You think that you might have encountered these things and that memory is completely just wiped? You think that's possible?
I don't know because, and I don't really want to hazard a guess either way, because I mean, I just want to like stick to the facts as I know them, and all I know is that I stood there for what felt like 5 or 10 minutes. I got home, and obviously it wouldn't have taken me that amount of time to walk from the bus stop to home with a 5 to 10 minute like stop off to watch this object. I probably still would have made it home in about an hour. And I think it would have been roughly, according to the time I got home, it would have been closer to like 90 minutes or so, like since I'd got off the bus. So I have to say, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, so basically you lost at least an hour.
Yes.
About at least an hour, like probably a little over an hour of time that is just gone. Well, I mean, have you ever considered, like this is something people ask me all the time, have you ever considered regressive hypnosis to try to recover that missing time, to see if there's anything there?
I have thought about that. And I think, I mean, if I were to do that, I definitely have to, I'd want to make sure it's in like a comfortable environment with at least one person close to me waiting in the next room, because well, I mean, it could go in two ways. Like, I mean, what is to say that if under that regression that something came out that either proved this or even disproved it, and I'd have to be open to both. If I was going to do something,
yeah,
I'd have to be open to both possibilities. For now, I think I'm happy with the odd memory, but if the chance, if it presented itself, I think I'd go for it.
Yeah, I mean, that's just something now, because I blacked out when I had that alien encounter when I was a kid. I don't know how I could have possibly that could have happened, because I was in the middle of being completely terrified. And people always say to me, "Well, why don't you go get hypnotized?" And I'm like, I don't know if I want to, because I don't know if I want. What if it's extremely terrifying, and what's it going to do? Except I'll have this terrifying memory now in my head that's part of my daily routine. I'll be in the forefront. You probably would think about it all the time. Maybe it's actually a good thing that they at least it's probably a benefit that they wiped your memory. Thank God they did. Thank God you didn't let me remember that. I mean, for all you know, you go to hypnotic regression, and then you have a memory in your head like, gee, why did I do that?
Yeah.
I mean, you would think like the guys like in the Allagash 4. I mean, I wonder now sometimes if they regret, remembering all this stuff that happened to them that was terrifying.
Well, yeah, because where do you go and get help or support for that other than, like the ufology community, which seems these days is full of as many debunkers and skeptics as believers. It can make things worse, possibly.
Yeah, I mean, it could. I mean, that's why I'm always go back and forth on it. Maybe someday I'll do it, just to see. But I don't know if I already know that they're here. I mean, why would I want to relive something that could possibly be terrifying? But I don't know. Maybe it would be. Maybe it wouldn't be. I don't know. I have no idea. But I have a feeling it would be terrifying. Something tells me.
Or at least something that would obscure or change your worldview even more so than the initial experience already did.
Yeah, it's like, wow, be too much to deal with. I might go into a catatonic state for about a month or something. I don't know. I don't know if I want to do that. I mean, maybe my shows on here will be just me just sitting there looking at the camera for a half hour.
Yeah,
see you later.
Go for the podcast, would it?
Yeah. No, so I don't know. So I guess it's something to think about, I guess, because you did lose some time. And I guess the weirdest part is, how did you feel though, all those years later, when all of a sudden this memory came, rushing back into your consciousness? Like, I mean, that had to be strange feeling right there.
Yeah, it was. So the memory in and of itself did not bother me in any way, shape, or form. I looked back at it fondly when I first recalled it. I look back at it fondly now for what it's worth. But the fact that it just came back out of nowhere, and that I had the realization that I'd forgotten about something so monumental for 13 years, that threw me. And the fact that I forgot about it still makes me slightly uncomfortable.
Yeah. Like it does. This topic could make you feel uncomfortable. It's unsettling sometimes. I think it's just, the issue is that, it's the unknown. I think the unknown is what scares us. And I mean, but at the same time, I think we need to face this reality that there is a presence here, and they have power over us. Obviously, I mean, if they're able to do things like what happened here, apparently, obviously, something happened. You saw something; it actually caused you to forget it somehow. You lost in about an hours of time, if not more. What was that all about? I mean, and do you think anything else has ever happened, or is this the only thing that you recall in your lifetime?
There was another incident where, actually, it was because I'd been away with an ex-partner for a couple of days, and we stayed in this Somerset in the UK, which is a couple of counties up, maybe like a 4 or 5 hour drive from Cornwall. And we'd stayed there for a few days after Christmas, and this was 2014. And we decided to drive back to Cornwall on New Year's Eve. And it was about probably between 4 and 5 p.m. And we were driving down a big hill on the motorway on the M5, and like a big, it looked like essentially what you'd imagine a meteorite to look like, a big, like glowing fiery ball. And it was very far away, but we both looked at it as we were driving down the road. It just shot across the sky in like a downward arc. And I kid you not, maybe, I mean, that probably lasted about 45 seconds, give or take. And then about a minute later, a black helicopter
Oh,
flew behind it, like following the exact same arc until we were driving on a motorway where, like, the speed, like average speed is between 60 and 70 miles an hour. So at that point, we lost sight of it. But I didn't witness that alone. And again, like we were like, well, that was fascinating, but who do you tell? And like, what's the
yeah, what's it gonna get you?
yeah, exactly.
It's like, okay, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, but
Call a
there was no
newspaper?
tail behind it or anything. There was no streak. It was just like a big fiery ball. It was I mean, and that could have even been like whatever it was, reflecting light. But yeah, so that was the only other thing that I'd say conclusively that I saw, and I was like, that's bizarre. Like, there's no explanation for it. And like, it's almost like a cliche, isn't it? The black helicopter following afterwards.
Yeah.
I was like, what is this? Come on.
And that didn't even prompt you to remember what happened before when that happened. It took you still another 3 years. You'd have to go by.
Yeah, yeah.
You'd think a UFO would, but no, you had to wait till you were on the same kind of similar medication that you were all these years before.
Possibly. I know that so when I was diagnosed with the diabetes back in I think it was just before 2004, like the tail end of 2003, I had likely been diabetic for a year or two. And see, I've told like some people this, and they're like, oh, well, you were newly diabetic. Were your sugar levels all over the place? And they weren't, because by the time I had this 2004 sighting, I had the diabetes under control within about a month. And so my blood sugar levels were running at what they'd expect a non-diabetic person to be. And I guess because I'd had them high in the background for a year or two prior, like I said, I had never had such like clarity of mind. I was diagnosed with a liver disorder at the age of like 13 or 14, which is when most people start to drink alcohol in the UK. So I didn't drink, I didn't do drugs. I started drinking a little bit, like socially, when I was 20, but knocked that on the head after a few years because it just didn't really do anything for me. So, that 2004 sighting, I had perfect blood sugar levels, perfect clarity of mind, no influence from drugs or alcohol or anything like that. And yet, wow, I forgot it for 13 years.
Yeah, that's amazing. And you never got to tell anybody at the time. You almost had a chance to tell your mom, but it went away. The whole. So I just want to. When you saw the Tic-Tac, was like, let's the description again. Like, when you saw it, was it like you say it was like standing up like an egg, long way, or was it sideways? Like,
no, it would have been if you imagine an egg that has been flipped onto its side. Yeah. So like the point is off one direction, but again, in like now, like I think, when it all came flooding back, that was just the first way, the first descriptor that popped into my head, because it was definitely rounder at the front, which would, again, be very much like a Tic-Tac shape.
And what was the color of this thing?
It was like, I guess, like a metallic silver sort of color.
Yeah.
I don't recall it. I mean, it was quite. I remember, oddly enough, that it was quite an overcast day. Like, the skies were very clear but quite grey, yeah. And so I didn't like. It didn't seem to be reflective or anything like that, and I didn't notice any. From again, like, granted, I was a couple hundred meters away. To me, it looked to be completely smooth, like no doors or windows or like bolts, rivets, or anything like that.
Yeah, and hovering.
Yeah, just like 2 to 3 stories or floors, in the air, and just there still, big as Christmas, just yeah.
Oh yeah, too bad you didn't have that camera. But hey, here's I wanted to point out, though. I mean, who knows what would have happened? I mean, sometimes, people try to film these things, and then, what kind of camera would that have been? I mean, it would have been, was that an earlier digital kind of camera, or was it a videotape camera from 2004?
Yes, yeah, well, it was 2004, but with Cornwall being so rural, we get You know, we get everything a little bit later than the rest of the UK, and it takes Cornwall a bit of time to catch up with everybody else. So I think, if I remember rightly, I don't know if it's one of those. I think it was either a high 8 or super 8 camera, which I believe was like a mixture of digital and analog. I think it was either high 8 or super 8, one of the two.
So yeah, but here's the thing. I mean, a lot of times, even like over the years, there's a lot of cases where people try to film things. And actually, I've heard cases where military officials or pilots try to film things through their gun cameras, but it doesn't work. Like somehow the equipment malfunctions, things like that. That happens sometimes when when people are close to them. It seems like when you're further away, it seems like you have a better chance of capturing something. But it seems like you were pretty close to it. And I mean, there might have been some interference or something that might have not maybe caused it to not work. I don't know. But unfortunately, we'll never know.
No.
All right. So I just want to. So, what's your feeling, I guess, Tom, on this phenomena? You think that we are not alone? I guess I'm sure we probably wouldn't be talking today with me. We didn't think that.
Yeah, it was swamp gas. Let's just say it was swamp gas, huh? No.
Yeah,
I feel there's definitely a presence here. What it is, I don't know exactly. I think it's, personally, I think that, if we're not alone, it's not just going to be one race or one entity. It's going to be various NHI and entities that probably have differing intentions, be it good, bad, or indifferent. And I'm sure, again, they probably come from a multitude of places, be it other galaxies, dimensions, and then obviously you've got the whole crypto-terrestrial theory, which could concern beings living in underground or in the oceans. And I think the reality is going to lie, or the truth is going to lie somewhere in between religion and science and folklore, because there's so many accounts of angels, demons, fairies, different dimensions, and they all share like a lot of similarities, according to the people experiencing them, and that the truth has to be somewhere in the middle,
Yeah. Now I'm sure you watched my show. You contacted me, and I'm sure you probably heard me because I talk about it a lot. I talk about the Vegas alien case, and I think that's probably the best evidence that we ever had with this, as far as alien creatures go. And I was just wondering what your opinion is on that.
Yeah, well, I believe it was within a week or two of all the congressional hearings last year, wasn't it, that the Vegas story came out? And I was initially very skeptical because I felt it was very convenient timing to have a story out there that was very quickly jumped on and debunked by the majority of the media at the time where these very serious congressional hearings were happening regarding the topic. But yeah, after the stuff that you did with Scott Roeder, especially the decrease, the moments where there's inexplicably a decrease in the pixels on the camera, that was what really hooked me into it and got my interest, because again, it's something strange, and it's something that I don't believe has been explained away yet.
Yeah, that's when I got it too. That was the thing that took me across the finish line, because when he told me that, and I actually mentioned that again, yesterday's show, because somebody said that they weren't seeing it, but then the video that I was just playing right now with that little creature, this is what got them to to the finish line. But and that's good, that's fine. But I was already there with the other stuff, and I thought the most to me, the most incredible thing was the fact that thing was blocking out the pixels, the 66% of the pixels. That was That's, to me, that made me realize, oh my God, this is the absolute proof. I mean, this is not going to be able to be debunked. You're not going to be able to debunk this. That was my feeling after seeing that. So yeah, that's where I am with that.
Yeah.
And actually, there was a new thing I wanted to do when I have guests on, and I talked to Tom about this beforehand. It's going to be called, I guess this is really stupid, the title I have for it right now, but putting them on the spot. And basically, every now and then I update the polls that I run on Spotify, and I was going to go through them, and Tom's going to help me and tell me what he thinks, what he would choose for some of the answers here. So I guess we'll start with the episode. For the episode UFO Encounters During the Vietnam War, I asked this question: why do extraterrestrial / NHI crafts show up in war zones? There was 33 votes so far. 0 people said chance. 1 person, or 3% says curiosity. 4 people, or 12.1%, say other. 5 people, or 15.2%, say some of the above. 10 people, or 30.3%, say all of the above, and then 13 people, or 39.4%, say surveillance. Now, the all of the above and some of the above, that includes chance, surveillance, and curiosity. So what do you? I don't know. What do you think, Tom? What would you go?
I mean, I think we can rule out chance. I don't. That would be just too much of a coincidence. Yeah, like I would say absolutely surveillance. If you had the technology to go and surveil another species with very destructive tendencies and technology, I mean, I'm sure we would. I'm sure our governments would, if they needed to surveil that. They absolutely would.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm with you on this one. The majority says surveillance, and I think it's surveillance. They're trying to figure out what we're up to, and preparing for it on their end, or maybe just laughing at us. Oh, they got something here, And then for the episode, Kirkpatrick Arrow Shenanigans Exposed / more Vegas alien video anomalies uncovered, I asked this question: what does the gimbal video show? There's 43 votes so far. 0 people say balloon. 1 person, or 2.3%, says bird. Another person, or 2.3%, says fighter jet. 3 people say weather anomaly. 8 people say other, and the majority, 30 people, or 69.8%, say alien flying saucer. So where are you on this one, Tom?
What did Kirkpatrick say on this?
He said it was a balloon flying against
Yeah, and was it Fravor or Davis who said that this had been tracked? Like, if they tracked this, wouldn't it have been going in excess of 5,000 miles an hour?
Yeah, something like that. I mean,
yeah,
it was a ridiculous
speed.
I think,
I don't think our fighter jets can go that fast, and I'd be very surprised if a balloon did. So I think it's got to be the alien flying saucer.
I'm with you on that one. I think so too. I think that we're looking at a flying saucer, and all this stuff we hear from like the debunkers. Oh, it was tilting, and the camera tilt. What does it matter? Look at it. It's and they saw a fleet of them. It wasn't just one. I mean, you hear the guys talking about a fleet. So yes, I agree with the majority on that one too. Okay, and for the episode, absolute proof of ET gives some UFO disclosure advocates big swagger, I asked this question: do you believe the alien being seen near the heavy equipment is a short gray alien? There's 44 votes so far. 8 people, or 18.2%, say no. 13 people, or 29.5%, say not sure. And 23 people, or 52.3%, say yes. So what do you think? Is that an alien creature?
And this is short gray. Was this the latter part of the Vegas video?
This is this one right here. This is the one I've been talking about. The short. I think this is my opinion. I think it's a short gray. That's what the majority's saying. I don't. Some people aren't sure. Some people say no. So I don't know. But yeah.
I think it is, considering all the other evidence that there is surrounding that Vegas case. I think if it was just that, I'd be on the fence, maybe even veering towards unlikely. However, taking into consideration you know, all the other work that yourself and Scott put into that, and all the other evidence, I'd say yes. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so there we go. We actually agreed on all of them so far, and the majority, and we actually agree with the majority too. So yes, short gray alien. Okay, and then for the next for the episode, Occam's razor largely favors extraterrestrial / NHI explanations. I asked this question: what would you do with a living alien being who crashed its flying saucer in your backyard? Okay, two people or 4.3% said call police. Another two people said shoo him away. 3 people or 6.4% say other. 5 people or 10.6% say hide him in your home. Another 5 people say run away. 6 people say they would live stream him. And the majority of people, 24 people or 51.1%, say converse with him. So what do you think you're on with that one?
Well, I think be difficult to run away from your own home because you're going to have to come back there at one point anyway. I don't know about over in the States, but here, like especially down in Cornwall, you call the police for anything, even an emergency. You know, you're waiting a good 20 minutes for them to show up, so you're not going to do that. I would absolutely try to converse or communicate with it, but possibly try to get some recorded evidence at the same time.
Yeah. I think I'm going to go with other answer actually and combine them. I probably should have had that. Converse with him while I'm standing there with my cell phone trying to film. Hey, buddy, are you okay? I mean, because you know, the better the. I mean, it's a thing about getting proof that the world needs to know this already. If the more proof you have, the better. And at the same time, you want to try to converse with them. I think so. Yeah, I would. You know, I'm going to go with the converse. Is that where you're going? You're going with converse with him. And
absolutely, yeah. I mean, I think at the end of the day, having something so extraordinary happen, to me, as selfish as it may be, my priority would be just learning and conversing and having that moment, and then providing I could then gather evidence afterwards. Because at the end of the day, you know, none of us have anything to prove to anybody with this. We have our beliefs and we have our way of seeing things. So yeah, I'd converse. Absolutely.
Yeah. I would converse. I think, you know, I that's the first thing I would do, and then I would try to film up some way or another, whether it's live stream or not, I don't know, but I would definitely, you know, try to do something with that. So, yeah, conversing though would probably be the first. I didn't see. Here's the thing though, you know, at the same time, it's easy to sit here saying this now, but in the heat of the moment, I mean, fear might become a factor. And
yeah.
you don't know how you're going to react if that happens. So that's another thing that, you know, it's like I think a lot of times you don't know, because when it happens, it's usually unexpected. You're not expecting these things to happen, and when they all of a sudden they happen, it catches you off guard and it scares you. So I don't know. I think you know, sitting here now, yeah, I would like to try to converse with them, but at the same time, I don't know how I would actually feel to be put in that situation. I think I'm going to go with that. But yeah, I'll just, you know, off the cuff, definitely converse. And then finally, for the episode from yesterday, Police Chief's newsletter sounds UAP reporting alarm, also Pascagoula UFO and OPNAC updates. I asked this question: are you surprised that police departments have no protocols in place to deal with UFO and or ET encounters? 18 votes only so far. 3 people say yes, 16.7%, and 15 people say no, or 83.3%. Are you surprised that they don't have anything in place to deal with this? Nothing at all?
No, I'm not surprised. There's still such a stigma around the topic, you know.
Yeah, I think there should be. I think they should have protocols in place. See, the whole problem is though, if the federal government or the United Kingdom government provides the smaller local police municipalities with you know, here's some protocols to deal with UFOs, and that's like giving the game away then, and so that's why they can't, I think.
Yeah,
but that doesn't mean that police departments can take it upon themselves, and I think that's probably pretty much what's going on now. That's why they're starting to talk about this. They need to come up with some ideas themselves, I think, even though, you know, recognize the fact that the federal government's probably not going to tell us anything, or, you know, that's what I'm thinking is happening. Could be.
Yeah, and I mean, historically, it's, you know, it's never really fared well for people in that position to come out and say stuff like this. There was a guy from, I believe, Todmorden in the north of the UK. He witnessed a craft hovering.
Alan Godfrey.
Yes, that's the one. Now his colleague, you know, like from what I've read and heard, his colleagues made him out to be like, he was a laughingstock. And in an environment like law enforcement, I'm sure it's the same over where you are as it is here. You know, it's still a boys' club, and there's going to be a lot of just, what's the word, like
teasing and ridiculing,
taking the piss. That's a British
thing. That's what's gonna happen. I mean, I every time, like over the years, you know, I got made fun of when I worked in newspaper offices, and I would, you know, be sitting there in the desk, you know, surrounded by reporters and editors, and I'm sitting there talking about UFOs and the experiences I had, and like a lot of them are chuckling, you know, but you know, I didn't care. I was just like, I let him, because I knew I was right. So that's why I think people need to take that kind of attitude and not let anything worry, you know. But unfortunately, 1980, that's when that happened to Alan Godfrey, and he was run through the mill on that. He had a terrible time after that because of that.
There's a very interesting photograph. It's black and white, and I believe it's from the 70s, from a place in Leeds in the north of the UK called Ilkley Moor.
Yes,
and it's of what appears to be a strange creature, like just, you know, a little while, you know, maybe 20, 30 foot away from the guy taking the picture. And I think that was a retired police officer that took that picture.
Yeah, actually, I'm looking at the picture right now. I just looked it up on here. I'll see if I could pull it up on the screen. Yeah, I remember this picture. This is very interesting. I'll share the screen here. Yeah, this was a straight. Yeah, that guy. Yeah, he was. Of course, the people called him a liar and all this kind of thing, and he faked it. And you know, so that's the issue that you face when you're you know what I mean, when you deal with these kind of things. Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
Oh, here it is. Hold on. At the stage. There we go. There it is right here. This little thing. Yeah. This little guy. Yeah, that was the Ilkley Moor one. Yeah, I remember that story. I think I know I talked about this on the show, but you know, it does jibe with the long arms. You know, a lot of people report the long arms. It's just hard. I think it's hard to get them on camera. These things have you know, they just seem to have everything figured out, and that's why it was so hard. Even though we had that, you know, you look at the different video, like the Vegas video, for instance. I mean, you look at it the first time, you don't see anything. You know, you don't see anything, and then you have to really, you know, okay, wait a minute here. People have to, you know, study it, and because they're trying to prevent themselves from being seen.
Yes,
and that's what's the problem is, and they don't want us to know that they're here for them. I think that it seems like that's the case, but then it does when you hear about other stories with the big craft showing up, the Phoenix Lights, Stephenville, Texas, among others, where there's giant craft that people see. I don't know what their game is. Are they up to a slow disclosure? They're letting us know, and maybe that's what this is too. I mean, they're letting us know in a slow fashion.
Yeah, and as well, I think. I don't know about you. I mean, I've never tried to fake a photograph of an alien or a UFO, but that's, you know, that's not going to be an easy thing to do. Like there was Steve Greer. He opened up his archives this year, didn't he? And within them, there were compilation videos of like very old pictures of objects in the sky and stuff. And I watched the video through, and it was close to an hour long, just picture after picture. And these are taken on film cameras, you know, up to like 50, 60 years ago. And I don't know how you could, you know, easily fake these objects in the sky, and unless you're doing it in post-processing, which, you know, I don't know how many people would have had access to that. And I can guarantee if you stand there throwing a frisbee, holding a camera, you're not going to get the depth that you see in some of these pictures.
No.
that was an easy crutch for debunkers to lean on, I think. But now, I think people are a bit more clued up that you can't just easily fake something like that.
No, and a lot of the famous pictures too, in my opinion, they were. I don't see how they could have been faked, like the Rex Heflin pictures. There was from 1965 and the McMinnville UFO from 1950.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a lot of different pictures that I don't say these people were genuine people. They stuck to their story the rest of their lives. A lot of different. I mean, they never made any money off of it. I mean, so why would they make something up like this? And then when you think about it, it's like this would be impossible to fake. Especially back then, these people didn't have those kind of there's no computer that they were able to go back to and try to screw around with the picture and their imagery. So a lot of them, some of them are fake. I mean, I've seen old pictures where I think was fake. There was some things here and there, but a lot of them are real, have been real. So
yeah, I had a book when I was a child, actually. I think it was the Osborne book of UFOs or something like that. And the majority of the book was actually debunking stuff. And yeah, there was a series of photographs taken in Italy, I believe, from like a third or fourth story window of an object that appeared to be in the sky. But actually, it turned out they just put little black stickers on their window and stood back a bit. But then once you realize that, it was very obvious to see what it was. I think, the fake ones, they really stand out. It's the ones that are potentially real that have you sort of scratching your head. Well, how would they do that? Is it the Vancouver, BC photograph? I think, or is it? There was one that was taken in Canada in this 80s, I think, and that's always fascinated me, just for how clear it looks.
Yeah. Let me look it up here. See what I don't know. Oh, I think is this it? Wait, hold on.
I think it was on Vancouver Island.
Vancouver Island. Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. I'm sure okay, yeah, there's a couple of pictures here of this thing, actually. Yeah, there it is. That's pretty clear. There's multiple pictures here.
Yeah, it was in Kelsey Bay, Vancouver Island, British Columbia. It looks like it's silverish object in a blue sky hovering over like a forested mountainside.
Yeah.
That's always really got to me.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna pull this up here real quick on the screen here. Here it is. Yeah, is this it? Is this what we're talking about? This one?
And if you scroll down a bit, you might come across it.
Okay.
There it is.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, this is the one okay, I've seen this one before with the yes. Yeah, that's a really good one. I mean, how could you can't fake something like that.
And you're taking that on a film camera in the 70s or the 80s as well. I mean, it's like, again, to the best of my knowledge, the people that have taken these photos, no one has really made any money off of them.
No.
So what will be the point of going to the effort of putting together an elaborate hoax just to fool people? It doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these cases, people don't realize this, but a lot of these cases, nobody made money on it. Some of the best ones, I mean, nobody made money. None of those kids ever made money in the Ariel school, even though there was no photographic evidence. But nobody made money from the Turkey UFO videos. I mean, that wasn't no big blockbuster money-making deal like some people debunkers might say. But nobody ever made money off that. Nobody's making money off the Vegas video. They released the video for the world to see, to back up their story. I mean, story after story after story. And a lot of them, nobody made money off them. The Rex Heflin videos or pictures from the 60s, like I was talking about before, the McMinnville, the Trent family that took that picture, they never made any money off it. So yeah. Anyway, I want to say this, Tom. I want to say thank you very much for coming on the show today and sharing your experience. I think it was fascinating. And it's just there. How many people have had experiences like this? I mean, this is the first time you've talked about this publicly, right? I don't think you didn't talk about this anywhere else before.
No, this I've mentioned it on a couple of like Reddit posts in the past. just briefly recounting it. But never publicly like this, and that's not for. I mean, it's just mainly because the opportunity's never presented itself. I've told probably a few of my friends. Like, funnily enough, I can't recall whether I've ever told my mom or not. But I'll get her to listen to the I'll tell her, then I'll get her to listen to this, and she'll get the full story,
get the gist of it.
But
yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean here, like, I mean, how many people out there like you that really never talked about this? That it's never been published in a book somewhere. I mean, there's so many different books out there about like alien encounters, but here and this, and now you've never talked about it except mentioning in Reddit posts. And here now, like, how many other millions of people, millions of other stories out there have just never been told, and some of them I'm sure are very fascinating. I found yours very fascinating. Could missing time, Tic-Tac, same year as the Fravor. That's pretty interesting.
I think there's probably a lot of people that have had experiences like this, but again, it's like, who, where, when, and who do you share these stories with? Like that, there's, I've mentioned it to like one or two friends who have actually turned around and said, that reminds me of a weird thing that happened to me once. And if I hadn't spoken to them about my experience, they wouldn't have then offered me their experience. So I think there's a lot of people that have probably seen and experienced weird stuff, but they're just like, well, what's the point in saying it if no one's going to believe me, or am I going to get ridiculed, or just struggling to maybe even explain it?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, more. I think the one thing that will definitely help, push us toward the end game here, to get our government officials or to finally come out, is more people standing up and saying, "Look, I saw this, and this is what happened to me." If you have enough people telling everybody else, "Hey, this is real, man," then that helps end this debate, and it helps us to move on. That's how I feel about it too.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to say thank you all for joining me today, and for Tom coming on the show. Thank you very much, Tom. It was very interesting, and I appreciate it very much. And I want to say thank you all for joining us here today. Until next time.